The National Desk, America's News Now.
We're not surrendering, we're fighting, but you have to be wise about choosing the fights. You gotta fight the fights that you can win.
The new Speaker of the House finds himself in the same position as the last Speaker as the shutdown week continues.
And today all of you are here showing we will not hide in the face of adversity in America and in Israel.
Thousands descend on D.C. to support Israel while the calls for a ceasefire in Gaza grow stronger. And then inflation is easing, but Main Street is still feeling the pinch. We're going to take a look at the latest numbers. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. Breaking news as we come on the air right now. The House of Representatives just finished voting to pass their two-tiered continuing resolution to fund the federal government. The deadline to pass the Senate is on Friday night. More than 90 Republicans voted against the measures. It took a united effort by Democrats to pass the bills. The same situation that happened in September that ultimately cost former Speaker Kevin McCarthy his job, something Speaker Johnson acknowledged this morning before the vote.
Look, it took decades to get into this mess, right? I've been at the job less than 3 weeks, right? I can't turn an aircraft carrier overnight, but this was a very important first step to get us to the next stage so that we can change how Washington works.
Both bills will make their way to the Senate, where it seems likely to have the votes make it to President Biden's desk before the funding deadline on Friday night.
I think the Speaker has produced a solution for the CR that's clearly a step in the right direction. I intend to support it.
A horrific scene in Columbus, Ohio today. At least 3 people dead, 18 others injured in a fiery crash that backed up traffic on I-70 for miles. A semi-truck rear-ended a charter bus transporting high school students, band members, some parents and teachers. They were going to perform at the Ohio School Boards Association convention. 57 people were on the bus. At least 5 were taken to the hospital.
I saw them. They had a ladder up in one window because there's a couple people exiting from the front of the bus. And it looks like they were near the rear of the bus trying to pull a couple people off.
Well, tens of thousands of people joined in the march for Israel in Washington, D.C. today. Not just about supporting Israel. Demands were made once again to bring the hostages taken by Hamas home and to fight back against anti-Semitism, which is on the rise around the country. Christine Frizzell brings us the very latest.
The National Mall in Washington packed with people gathering in support of Israel. 5.5 weeks after more than 1,400 were killed there by Hamas.
This is totally because of Hamas, because they're holding our hostages and because they attacked Israel.
I think this shows the world that we're not afraid and we're here. We're going to stay. We have one country and we're going to protect it.
Another central theme of the march, combating anti-Semitism, with incidents up more than 300% from this time last year and skyrocketing on college campuses. Also, the subject of a hearing just a few blocks away.
We have a crisis today on America's campuses. This is an emergency.
Incidents include threats to kill Jewish students at Cornell, anti-Semitic messages projected on University of Pennsylvania buildings, and an overall campus culture Sahar Tartak says makes her fear for her safety at Yale.
I sit in a crowded dining hall and I ask myself, how many people in this room want me dead?
More than 1,600 Harvard alumni in a letter calling for meaningful reforms on campus to ensure that every student is safe, threatening to withhold funds to the university, adding, "We never thought we would have to argue for recognition of our own humanity." Faith leaders demanding change. You are here on Capitol Hill. What do you hope lawmakers can do?
We hope lawmakers will simply enforce Title VI. The federal government has as a rule that it will only provide funding to programs, to universities, to public spaces where everyone feels safe.
Concerns about safety now and in the future, a presence permeating. These calls for college campus administrators and law enforcement to do more are growing louder, and we expect will continue to build. Amira?
And Christine, it's not only anti-Semitic incidents we're talking about. It seems like we're seeing a huge rise as well in anti-Arab and anti-Muslim incidents.
Yeah, that's right. The Council on American Islamic Relations says those incidents have skyrocketed more than 200% in the last month. And there are also growing concerns that entities are starting to propose banning pro-Palestinian protests, often made up of people calling for a ceasefire. They say that the concerns for supporting Israel should not overshadow the rights of Americans to speak out and voice their concerns about Israel's response. The war in Gaza, which has resulted in the death of more than 11,000 people, nearly half of whom are children.
Christine Frizzell reporting for us in Washington, D.C. Thank you. The rally comes after a string of large protests in recent days across the United States in Miami, Boston, Atlanta, and in world capitals, including London, announcing the Israeli military campaign in Gaza, now plunging the Palestinian territory into a humanitarian crisis. Now, just 2 hours ago, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees announced its fuel storage facility in Gaza is empty and that it will soon end relief operations. Food staples are waning, medical supplies are being rationed, and only one hospital in northern Gaza remains operational, according to UN officials on the ground, as fighting rages around several health facilities harboring thousands of civilians, both those sheltering and the wounded. Doctors there struggling to keep patients alive.
A hospital is a lifeline. It's a place of refuge, a place where you take shelter. By the continuous bombing and the assault on the hospitals that has rained down on Gaza for the last nearly 40 days, it's turned the hospitals into morgues and into a death trap.
Trapped in one Gazan hospital are at least 2 U.S. citizens from Pennsylvania, a mother and her daughter who were on a bus headed to the border with Egypt to flee when it was hit by a rocket and this young teen lost her hand. Israel says Hamas militants are abusing the protected status of hospitals, hiding underneath them to evade military forces, showing intelligence in recent days like this video to support their claims. U.S. officials backing that belief, though admitting they have no independent corroboration of that. Meantime, tonight, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu indicating he believes the increased pressure from their ground campaign is helping to move hostage talks in the right direction. Netanyahu under intense pressure right now to secure the safe release of 239 people believed held by Hamas. CNN reports the U.S., Israel, and Hamas are working toward a deal with Qatar helping to mediate, but those involved have been relatively quiet on the details. President Biden addressing it today.
I've been talking with the people involved every single day. I believe it's going to happen, but I don't want to get into detail.
What's your message for the families?
Hang in there, we're coming.
Tonight, we know one hostage, a 19-year-old Israeli soldier, was confirmed dead by Israeli forces. Hamas says she died in an Israeli airstrike. Israel has not yet commented on her cause of death. Since the start of the war on October 7th, a small number of additional hostages have been released. That includes 2 Americans who were released in late October. Meantime, tonight, the United States announcing a new round of sanctions on a group of Hamas officials and members of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad who they say are working to transfer money from Iran to Gaza, coming as both Democrats and Republicans send a strong message to the Iranian regime that it will be held accountable if war in the Middle East expands.
If there's an expansion of the war where Hezbollah goes all in, trying to overwhelm the state of Israel, the right response for the United States would be to hit Iran. My advice to the Biden administration is knock them out of the oil business.
Don't be stupid. You don't want a war with the United States of America.
A Senate resolution is being introduced stating that the U.S. will hit Iran directly if a second front opens in northern Israel. It's unclear whether the measure has enough support to pass. And this just in, a Michigan state judge has ruled against the case to bar Donald Trump from being on Michigan's ballot based on the 14th Amendment's insurrection clause. The judge says the state does not have the jurisdiction to rule on a constitutional amendment. Last week, the Minnesota Supreme Court also denied an attempt to remove Trump from Minnesota's primary ballots. Meantime, closing arguments are expected tomorrow in the trial on this same subject in Colorado. And New York City Mayor Eric Adams under federal investigation right now for possible foreign influence. The FBI is determining whether the Turkish government used a web of businessmen to gain favor with Adams to further Turkey's business interests in New York. Adams, who has not been accused of any wrongdoing, says he's going to continue to let the investigations play out.
We are fully cooperating with whatever the reviewers are looking for. We are fully cooperating with it, and my role is to allow them to do their job without interference.
The mayor's team declined to answer questions as the investigation remains ongoing. U.S. authorities say illegal border crossings fell in October after 3 months of increases. There were more than 188,000 arrests for illegal crossings last month, down from more than 218,000 in September, which was the second highest on record. Arrests more than doubled over the previous few months as migrants adjusted to the May asylum regulations. Illegal crossings are still historically high despite that decline. A North Dakota judge denied a motion to temporarily block the state's ban on gender reassignment surgery for minors as the court reviews whether the law should be declared unconstitutional. The next hearing for a possible injunction is set for January. Meanwhile, similar legislation has seen their bans put on hold in other states like Arkansas, Georgia, Indiana, and Montana as their legal process plays out. And David DePape took the stand on his own for his defense today. He has pleaded not guilty to attempted kidnapping of a federal official and assault. Prosecutors say DePape bludgeoned Paul Pelosi, husband of former Speaker Nancy Pelosi, last October at the couple's San Francisco home. Defense attorneys say they plan to wrap up their case by the end of the day. DePape could face life in prison if convicted on the federal charges. He also faces state charges. The campaign fundraiser for New York Republican Congressman George Santos has pleaded guilty to a federal wire fraud charge in a plea deal. Sam Yell worked for Santos's campaign during the 2020 and 2022 election cycles. He was indicted in August, accused of impersonating former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy to get donations. He did not plead guilty to identity theft.
No, sit down. Sit down. Look at you. You know, you're a United States Senator.
Coming up, things are getting heated on Capitol Hill with several fights almost breaking out today. Then inflation seems to be cooling down, but many Americans are still struggling to get by. What's behind the new numbers? Plus, what happened when Seattle police broke into the wrong apartment after getting a call about someone in crisis? We are back in 90 seconds. Tensions very high on Capitol Hill lately. While political parties usually have a war of words, today a true fight almost broke out during a Senate hearing on labor practices. Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin, who has a mixed martial arts background, took exception to social media posts by Teamster president and witness Sean O'Brien from over the summer after the last time he testified before Congress, calling Senator Mullin a fake tough guy.
Quit the tough guy act in these Senate hearings. You know where to find me, any place, anytime, cowboy. Sir, this is a time, this is a place. If you want to run your mouth, we can be two consenting adults. We can finish it here.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect.
You want to do it now?
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on.
Big guy.
No, stop it.
Is that your
All right.
solution every
No, sit down. Sit down. Look at you. You know, you're a United States Senator. Sit down.
Active.
Oh, okay.
Sit down, please.
Well, this back and forth went on for another few minutes as committee chairman Bernie Sanders tried to regain control of the hearing. Meanwhile, on the House side, another fight almost broke out today intra-party as one of 8 Republicans who voted to oust former Speaker Kevin McCarthy 5 weeks ago alleges he was hit with a little revenge through violence.
Got elbowed in the back, and it kind of caught me off guard because it was a clean shot to the kidneys, and I turned back, and there was Kevin, and I for a minute I was kind of, what the heck just happened? And then I chased after him. Of course, as I've stated many times, he's a bully with $17 million in a security detail.
Well, Congressman McCarthy, for his part, says he was just walking by in a tight hallway and any contact was inadvertent. Congressman Matt Gaetz says he will file an ethics complaint. The Senate Rules Committee voted in favor of changing floor rules to allow the Senate to quickly confirm the more than military nomination being blocked by Senator Tommy Tuberville. The measure needs to go before the full Senate, but it will need 60 votes to pass. Schumer says we need those nominations to go through as soon as possible for national security reasons. Well, in your money, inflation seems to be easing as October's consumer inflation report came in slightly better than expected, sparking a rally on Wall Street today. But as national correspondent Atral Nashar reports, data beneath the headlines shows prices for many necessities are still ticking up.
The U.S. is now the closest it's been since the pandemic to seeing an inflation rate economists consider normal. In October, consumer price inflation fell to 3.2% year over year. Drops in utility costs and gas prices are a big reason why.
And imagine for a lot of people it feels good to know that they can get more fuel for less money.
Core consumer inflation, which excludes volatile food and energy prices, dropped slightly to 4%. The better-than-expected reading sent stocks soaring Tuesday. Also welcome news at the White House. President Biden says he's still working every day to lower costs, praising a 21-month streak of unemployment below 4%. But recent polling paints a more complicated picture of how everyday Americans feel. A new Financial Times Michigan Ross survey finds 57% of voters say they're having trouble getting by or just meeting expenses. While the overall inflation rate is declining, actual prices at the grocery store, for instance, are still going up, just at a slower pace. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, a moderate monthly grocery budget for a family of 4 when Biden took office in January 2021 was $929. Now it's $1,099. The president getting low marks on the economy even within his own party. Only 24% of Democrats said they're better off financially than when Biden took office. The issue front and center in the 2024 presidential race.
The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer.
We have inflation in this country that is choking every American family that wants to try to rise up.
With just shy of a year before the election, the president working to convince Americans the strong labor market and his administration's long-term investments in things like infrastructure mean they'll be better off. On Capitol Hill, I'm Atral Nashar for the National Desk, America's News Now.
Well, President Biden is in San Francisco for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Conference of World Leaders. The president has a number of events planned, most notably his meeting with Chinese leader Xi Jinping tomorrow. Biden says he's hoping to get back on a normal course of correspondence.
We're not trying to decouple from China, but what we're trying to do is change the relationship for the better.
During the conference, Biden will deliver remarks highlighting the strength of the U.S. economy and its longstanding economic ties with the Asia-Pacific. Earlier today, Biden announced more than $6 billion to combat climate change as the administration released its fifth national climate assessment.
This assessment shows us in clear scientific terms that climate change is impacting all regions, all sectors of the United States. It shows that communities across America are taking more action than ever to reduce climate risk.
Biden also said it's, quote, foolish for anyone to deny the impacts of climate change. And former President Trump's Truth Social not doing so well. We're learning today it has lost millions of dollars since its launch. According to a new filing from Digital World Acquisition Corp, the social media platform has lost $73 million since last February. Trump started it to compete with platforms like Facebook and Twitter. His accounts on those apps were banned after the January 6th riot. And take a look at this. The Secret Service releasing this photo of the cocaine that was found at the White House this summer. The bag was discovered in a cubby at a West Wing entrance area. Secret Service agents closed their investigation on July 12th after saying they could not identify a suspect and there was no surveillance video showing what happened. CDC data shows women in the U.S. can expect to live nearly 6 years longer than men. The agency says disparities in COVID-19 deaths and drug overdoses have caused the biggest life expectancy gap we've seen in years. Since the pandemic started, life expectancy dropped for men and women. But in 2021, the expectancy for women was 79.3 years. For men, it was 73 and a half. Coming up here, a normally safe Maryland neighborhood was taken by surprise when a woman was robbed at gunpoint. She shares her story next. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We are taking the pulse of America.
They came around the corner and very quickly advanced on me. I yelled at them to get off my property. And when they got within swinging reach, I swung my groceries at them.
A struggle that quickly ended when the woman says two young men dressed in all black and wearing masks, pulling out a gun, then grabbing her purse as she was unloading her groceries around 9:30 in the morning. Inside her bag, credit cards, ID, keys, and cash. But it's not what was in the bag she misses most.
I could care less about money gone. It's the fact that I no longer feel safe coming home.
As this was happening, Elizabeth Wren was about to step into the bathtub inside her Belltown apartment.
Seattle police! Show me your hands!
Hello?
What the inside? Who else is inside?
Nobody! I live alone!
According to the lawsuit, police were responding to reports of someone in crisis throwing objects from a fourth-floor apartment window onto the sidewalk and possibly someone hanging from the window.
What are you doing? Why?
Once inside her apartment, police checked the windows and comment that none were broken. Rain's suit alleges police got the wrong apartment and the wrong building. It says police were dispatched to 3028 First Avenue. Elizabeth lived a half block away at 3016.
California's first drive-through Denny's opened its doors in Kerman. The franchisee operator says it's a huge advantage and to support the community.
It was a great opportunity. We all went through the pandemic. We all went through having to go through some hard times and drive-through. So we really felt like bringing a drive-through option for the convenience of the Kerman community and surrounding community to really enjoy a fresh hot meal at really 24 hours a day.
She went on to say the response on day one was positive. The restaurant is offering great savings throughout the week. If you go inside the store, you will have a shot at winning a prize.
All right, up next, an iconic restaurant jingle is making a comeback. The famous musical group that's recording the new version. We will be right back. Well, you all remember Chili's famous "I Want My Baby Back Ribs" jingle, right? How could we forget it? It is making a comeback. The restaurant has hired Boyz II Men to record an updated version for a new ad campaign. And in a fun twist, given it was a common misconception that the R&B group originally sang the song, which was last used in the mid-2000s, now perception is truly becoming reality. And something tells me it'll once again be playing on repeat in our heads. That does it for this edition of the National Desk. We do invite you to join us again this evening for more coverage of America's top stories. Just check your local listings. I'm Amira David. Thank you so much for watching.